All right, so first is I'm just gonna show you real quick how you can use menu systems. And they should not put this there. They should put this here. All right, so create a new project, and I'm just gonna call it menu proj. Okay, this forms application. So ideally what you're going to have is usually your usual text boxes here, right? And we're going to have another text box here. And let me go to properties window. I'm gonna make this third text box read only, and call this first text box txt1, second text box txt2, and third text box tx3 total. And we're gonna have a button here. We're gonna call add the numbers. So btn add. Okay. Now we're just gonna call this one add, right? And the idea is we're going to have a number here, and we're going to show the total here. That's pretty much all we're building, right? And all I'm trying to demonstrate here is menu. We're not there on the menu yet. I actually need to figure out where the menu is. There it is, menu strip to look for. Okay, so
drag and drop.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I will double click the button, right? So that it takes us to our coding view here. So what I'll do is I will create a function that adds those numbers. So we'll say void add numbers, right? Yeah. We're not going to return anything. It's gonna show it the output. So add number. So we'll say int num1 equals txt, or convert to int 16-bit txt1.text. Okay, num2. So what are we doing here? All we're doing is grabbing the values of these two right here, right? And putting them into a variable, right? To these two different variables. And then eventually we're going to say int total equals num1 plus num2, right? and then we put the total here, correct? So all I'm doing is building a function. So we'll say txt total.text equals total.toString. Right? And we go to this button here, and then we just call that function. Add numbers. Make sense? So let me start this. And hopefully it works. 5, 6, add, get 11, right? But the calculation is triggered by the button, right? Right? But I created a specific function for it that adds the numbers, and I just call that function. So what you can do is, in your design here, you can go to your menu under your Windows Forms controls. You go to, let me just expand this thing here. Let me go to the menus and toolbars, and I will create this menu strip. Click and drag it, and now you have a menu strip here, right? So you type here, let's say some main, right? And if you have another one here, you can say reports, administration, for example. Then you can have reports. And every time I do this, I always say it's not fair. Back in the day, if you're coding, if you need to create a menu system, you have to menu line by line. And if you want to have like a sub menus,
like drop down
menus, right?
Another drop.
Yeah, you cannot really say. You pretty much have to draw the location of the menu. Like this first menu is from here to here, second menu is from here to here. They're not really linked together. You're just pretty much placing them on the screen. So if you want to have sub menu, you have to draw the sub menu, and you say on sub menu for the first one should show up right below it, and all the way to this this location on the screen, and each one should be like a place, and then and this one here, you just type things in, and then if I want a sub menu under main, just type it here. You say file, edit, right? You got administration, users, access, for example, security, reports, summary, detail, right? And help, you say user guide, about, right? So we haven't done anything other than have a menu. So it's you click here, administration, reports, detail, right? I mean, we did it in like 1 minute, right? Back in the day, it would take me like 2 weeks to.
So you could go under. Well, now you're.
Oh yeah. So here, if you want to add under edit, copy. I can spell, paste, and stuff like that. So you can, again, you can just easily main edit. So you can have menus of.
How can you make it point to? So you go into the forms design. Would you just assume you could double click on one of those and then open?
Exactly.
And then you can make it point to.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna add one here under reports, under main, edit, and then here add number, for example, or however you want to call it, right? So you go here, add numbers, double click, copy this code right here, and now you guys get it why I have to create a function for it, so that I can call it in the menu, so that I don't have to keep recreating this code. So from there you run it. 6, 7, 13, 10, 9, and I can go here, edit, add numbers, 19.
Okay.
That's menu. I'm happily willing to share it because back in the day,
It's a pain.
oh yeah, man, to draw this, like this one, you have to say, okay, there's a submenu, you put it from 0 to 0, but 5 pixels below the main menu, and you have to calculate that pixelation from that position right there. Now we just click and drag, type things in, but that's menu system.
Back in my day,
Back in my day, yeah.
I used to walk to school in the snow.
Yeah. So that's it. So I mean, it's really straightforward, right? The menu system, yeah. So, and you can also add. I remember I haven't really used a control strip back in. I think you can have a context menu strip. Let me see here. I think it's this one right here, where you can. You can actually right-click something and then it will do it. But I know I haven't really used it in a while. The context menu. So I don't want to have. I don't want to set a wrong example. But let me just save this and that's it for the menu. All right. So our next thing here is let me start the concept of. I don't have a PowerPoint slide, but I just want to use this as a tool. I don't know why it's showing me in presenter view. How can I make it full screen? I don't want that. Okay. Albert? View, slideshow. Let me check. Yes, okay. So, actually, let me use this just to make sure that it's actually right. Is this right set? Yeah, this is not right set. I think it's the other one. Oh, is it this one? Yeah, that's the one. Yes, this one. Yes. And then
The pen maybe?
yeah, it's the pen that I need to show. I've done it before. I'm
Oh, yeah, I remember.
yeah, it's in PowerPoint. Yeah, but I have to use my mouse. All right, so I guess let's just do this. Okay, so data structure. One of the first concept that we talk about data structure, and data structure is all about how you organize data going to our computers and how you access them. And before, one of the common ways of actually putting data into our computers and access them, there are two that are very popular. One is called stacks, and one is called queue. Right? We're gonna start first with. Let's start with which one I have to start. Let me start with stack. Yeah, start with stack. So stack pretty much implement this technique called LIFO. Last in, first out. So the idea here is every time you want to add a so let me draw. So let's say this is your stack, right? At least I can actually draw this thing too. I've done this before here. It's not relevant. Maybe I have to switch to write mode. But it's not drawing on the screen. That's fine. So I'm just going to draw it here on the screen. So we have all this. Let's say this is our stack here, right? So every time we add a data into our stack, it goes down here, right? Like imagine this as like you're in a restaurant and you have all these trays stacked together, right? So every time you need to get a tray, you don't really pull from the bottom, right? You pull from the top. So this stack concept here is similar. So if you put here, let's say we're gonna stick with the fruits, apple, right? You say, and there are the two main functions of a stack is push, you push it, and pop. So pop is where you pull out from the last item. Push is you keep adding items. So every time you add an item, you pretty much add it on the top of the stack. So if we have apple here, and the next one is banana. And then orange, right? So you say add orange. And then you say kiwi. So these are all push, right? So when I say pop, what will be the first one that was going to come out? Kiwi, right? So they will eliminate kiwi. The next time you said pop, push again, orange, we are grapes, right there. Mango. And then when you say pop, this is going to come out. So every time you say pop, whatever's the last one, last in, that's going to be the one that will be available. So that is called stack. Push and pop, right? So let me just keep. So let me save this. I'm going to upload it later. Box. All right. So, programmatically, how are you going to implement a stack? So let's see, I'm going to create a new project, Windows Forms application, and we're going to call this one stack And by the way, this is called collections, all right? Collections slash data structure, but I'm gonna call it the collections stack. That's the name of our project, collections stack. Again, last in, first out. So this is gonna be our project window. First, we're going to add a text box, a multi-line text box. So I'm gonna click the multi-line here, make send it to true. The only job this is gonna do is show the current data of our stack. Right, that's all it's gonna do. So we're gonna call this one txt stack content. That's the name of that text box. We're going to add a text box and this will show the txt push. Okay, these are text that we're going to be adding into our stack, and then the button that will trigger so we're going to call this one btn push, and we're going to call this one push, and then another button here, and we're just going to call it pop. btn pop. Say pop right there. Okay. So we're going to be using a collection class called stack. So to be able to use the collection class, we have to identify the namespace for it. So one of the first thing we have to do is I'm just gonna double click this push right here so that I can see the code view. And one of the things I want to add here is the using system.collections. Without that, we cannot use the stack class, right? So outside, so here I went back to our design here. I'm going to go back to push. Outside the click method of that button, we're going to create a global instance of the stack class. We're going to instantiate it. Okay. So we say stack, the name of the class, an instance of the class, we're going to call it myStack, equals what? New stack. So we're going to instantiate it there. All right, so let's also create a method that will just show the contents of this myStack. Okay, so let's create void show stack. Okay, and let's define a variable here. So it's a string stack content equals empty, right? No, we're not going to use it yet. So how do we show the contents of my stack, you can actually use a loop, say for each string, which is data type, and in the name of our stack, my stack, and we say stack content plus equals string. And let's add the the line feed and carriage return. So plus backslash r backslash n, so that it returns to the next line. So all of this is going to read the values line by line of our stack, put it into a variable so that we can project it later on into our text box, into this text box right here. So how do we put it in our text box? txt stack content dot text equals stack content. Right, so eventually we're going to put something here, right? So right now it's empty. All we did is instantiate a stack class called myStack and instantiate it here. And then we sort of created a function, and all of this is it reads the values inside our stack, do a loop, put it inside the temporary variable called string, and each time it goes to the to values in our stack, it increments it and accumulates it into this stack content. Once we have the accumulation of it in the string variable here, we put the value inside that and put it into this text box. So right now we are not collecting or pushing any type of stack value. Okay? So how do we put a value in a stack? So we put the value here, right, on this text box here, and then we hit push, and then it will get added here. So first is string push val equals txt push dot text. And how do we put this into our stack? You say the name of our stack, my stack dot push. It is part of the method of the stack class, and then inside it the object you're pushing, which is now push val. Val. And then from here, once we added it, let's update the contents of our stack so that it shows the correct content here. And we just call the function show stack. Any questions? So this one here is just taking our input on that text box, like here, on this text box here. This one right here pushes that value into our stack, and this here runs this code, and all it does, it shows the values in our stack. So let's run this so that it makes you'll see that, so that it makes more sense to you. So I'll add apple, push, banana, push, orange, push, grapes, push, pineapple, push, mango, push. So as you can see that the stacks gets getting full, but it actually keeps getting added from the top, not from the bottom, right? So if you want to implement it, maybe you have a deck of card where you can only get it from the top, right? So that's one way to implement. So how do you extract a stack from the top? So if there's a push, I told you there's a pop, right? So how do you issue a pop? All you got to say the name of your stack, pop, and then again update show the value of our stack. So let's run this. Apple, banana, grapes, pineapple, right? Then I will issue a pop. You will just remove pineapple. Strawberry, push again. Kiwi, push again. And then I hit a pop, pop, pop. It extracts it from the top. Now, you can contend that, oh, I can do that in arrays, right? You can just issue arrays, and then you can have variable if you're doing. The problem with arrays is you have to constantly update your index numbers and the size too, right? Because every time you remove from the top, you gotta move it up. Move from the top, you gotta move it up. But the thing is, with arrays, meaning which one is now your top? Is it the index 0 or whatever the last one is? So it is a lot harder to do, implemented using manually in arrays. With stack, it's automatic. You just issue a push, it adds value to the top. Pop, it just removes whatever the last value is. And orange. Apple, then pop, 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 pop. See, I got an error now because I have no more, nothing. I have nothing there. Yeah. So
You could say if.
But you guys get the idea, right? So you can, let's say you have a deck card. You want to remove what's on the top. You got to put values in the stack. You got to put your card deck first in a stack, and then if you want to see what the sequence of the cards from the top, then you can just say pop, 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 right? It's not always just string. You can make it numbers. You can make it other objects. And next week we're going to learn something called generics, where it is an actual technique in C#, where when you program, if you don't know what the data type is, you can make it a generic data type. It's called generics. That's one of the strengths of C# programming. It's one of those things called generic. We're going to talk about that next week. But right now we're all about collections and data structures. So any question about stacks? So another question about stacks. That's it for stacks. Let me say this. And let me pause this. Let's take a break, guys. It's 6:55. Let's take a 10-minute break. And then we will continue with Q. Q is first in, first out. Similar idea. But we're going to continue. So the next thing we'll do is talk about Q. Right? Good. And just do the mic because the mic's right there. Right, so if this is our Q, every time we add a value into our Q, same thing. So let's say, which adding a value into a Q is called NQ. And removing a value is called DQ. Programmatically in C# using the Q class. So if we need to add, if we NQ like apple, it will be the first one there, and then banana. Let's say grape, right? And then if we say VQ, it will use this because this is the first in. So Q is a first in, first out framework. So if this is the one that first came in to our Q, then it will be whenever we issue a Q out or a DQ, then it will go to the first item available. Not the top one, but the first item. So this goes. And then you can continue adding, and then you say kiwi, pineapple, okay? And then when we issue a DQ, it will go here, and then you just can keep adding and adding, and then we'll go to the next one. That's what a queue is about, okay? Skip this. Keep, and I will save this. What did I call the other one? Q demo. I should have removed this on the other one. Yeah. The other one is called. Yeah, I'm just gonna remove this. It's gonna be interesting when somebody try to, not here in class, try to download this. Like, what the heck is that? You know. So that's the idea with the. So to make our lives simpler, what I'll do is I will go to our project earlier, and I'm just going to duplicate that so I don't have to recreate those buttons. And so let me go to our project here, and this collection stack. I'm gonna duplicate this, copy, and then paste. And I will call this one Q. Okay. And by the way, Aaron, I got my AirPod. I love it. But my wife was yelling at me because the first day I was using it, I was like running all over the place inside the house, jumping, playing my music, singing.
It was amazing, right?
Yeah. So, and it stayed, and the quality is pretty good. I mean, you're right about the quality. I have some doubts about it, but it's pretty good. So, all right. So, I duplicated the. What did I say? Did I open up the right one? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna rename this to. I know it's good collection stack, but don't worry, we're just gonna rename this. So let's rename this to. We're not gonna rename it. So we're just gonna go to properties here and change some of the buttons here. So this one here, instead of calling this BTN push, we're gonna call this one BTN NQ. QUEUE. And then the text property of it, we're gonna call it this one NQ. This one here, we're gonna call it BTN Q, and then text property of it right. So they're still gonna say, okay, we're just gonna change this one to txt Q content. Okay, this one here is txt NQ. Okay, so I'm going to double click this, and you can see that some of the codes being automatically got renamed when we change the names of our form objects or form controls. So the only thing we got to change here is, you know, we already have the collection namespace here, the libraries, the call to the library. So we got that. It's the same one. It's called system.collections. We're just gonna rename this, instead of stack class, we're gonna call it Q. My Q. Okay, Control Z. Okay. I messed something up there. Okay, my Q. Okay. Show Q. Instead of saying Q. Q content. For each string in my Q, again, update this Q content again. Q content. All I did there is renaming some of our variables so that it reflects Q instead of stack, so that when you look at the code, it's not going to make a difference. Now, up here on our project solution names, we're just going to keep it as collection stack because I don't want to mess up our application. We're just going to make changes here in the main core application. So I've changed the function that shows the current contents of our queue, and here we're going to change the code here inside the button to add values into our queue. So a string, I'm going to call this one, I'm not going to change this. It will say BTN push because there's already a symbolic link. Even though I renamed the button object name, even though I renamed it, the symbolic link was going to be will stick there. So we don't have to, I'm not going to change it. So here we're going to call it qval. My Q dot. So adding value into our queue, it's no longer push. Push is only for stack. So this one here is called NQ. Oops. Yep. Okay. And how do you remove a value from your queue? Then you say DQ. Getting hungry now, DQ. Yeah. DQ. Okay. Show queue. My right, so run this app. Apple, banana, so you can see here things are getting added from the bottom, not from the top anymore, so they don't get pushed down. Kiwi, and then if you issue a DQ, removes the first one. Grapes, what happened there? Grapes in Q. If I issue DQ, remove banana. So here, Mac, Windows, you issue a DQ, it removes whatever the most first one is. And that's really is just the opposite of stack. That is called data structures. And back in the day, they had to figure out a way to organize data so that, okay, how are we going to be dealing with this? Are we dealing with data from the whatever the last one available is, or are we dealing with data? And this concept is all about memory management. Queuing, like for example, if you have like 64 gig, right? And if you need to reuse, for example, let's think about your, I just switched to a different cable provider, right? When you do your DVR, right? So back in the day, you have to decide what algorithm you're gonna handle. How are you gonna handle deleting? Because sometimes your hard drive, on the video recording on your DVR device would get full, right? At one point, you're going to decide how are we going to eliminate the videos so that we can record new videos because it gets full. So back in the day, you have to decide one structure. Are we going to remove the last videos recorded, or are we going to remove the first one, the earliest one that you recorded? So are we going to doing stacking or queuing? Does that make sense? So back in the day, where memory management is very important, because we have very limited amount of memory in our computers, data structure is very important. Now, because we have computers now that has like 64 gig of memory, 120 gig of RAM space. I'm not talking about flash memory or solid state memory. I'm talking about physical memory. So now it's negligible. You can actually play a video that is 1 gig, and you can push all that into your RAM, and it doesn't hurt your computer. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember, when you play a DVD on your computer, it slows everything down because it's using a lot of virtual memory, because the random access memory gets filled in pretty quickly, filled up very quickly. But back in the day, you got to decide: are you doing? And so in computer science, when I was a student, we have to do calculation. What is the best scenario? Or is it stack or queue? It's something, another one called linked list, where you got all those, and then one is connected to another. It's more complicated. That's why I have to stick with stack and queue today. But again, next week we're going to continue with generics. But this one is part of something called collections data structure, and a stack and queue. So any question about queue? It's really just this one is first in, first out. That's what you want to remember with queuing. Stack is last in, first out. And that's really all I have for collections data structure. I know we're early, so if you want to have questions, about the assignments, about the project, if you want to work on it here, and have questions about it to me, that's the time to do it. But if not, that's all I have for lecture for today.